doing? You can unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself, please.
Okay, sorry.
All right. So live from Kigali, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to apologize for a bit late due to some of connectivity issues. You know, we're still learning how to move forward with this technology, and sometimes it's not on our side. So it's a week three, a living archive. And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the week three of the Living Archive. It's our LinkedIn series every Tuesday, and this May we choose to go with the theme about moving from cultural memory to economic infrastructure. So over the
Mm,
past 2 weeks, this journey has evolved from conversation about archives into a much deeper reflection on the memory, identity, governance, technology, and the future Africa is breeding. In week one, we challenged the idea of archives as a static repository and began reimagining them as living ecosystems shaped by communities, memory,
mm,
and intergenerational continuity. In week two, we explored how cultural assets can evolve into economic systems capable of shaping regenerative futures and the Africa we want under the Agenda 2063. And now, in week three, the conversation reached on the defining question of the artificial intelligence era. We are defining this question: who really owns the archive in the age of AI? Because once memory becomes data, once identity becomes digitized, once culture enters algorithmic systems, the archive is no longer passive. It becomes infrastructure. And it becomes infrastructure for identity, it becomes infrastructure for governance,
mm.
citizenship, economics, belongingness, and of course, infrastructure for power. And perhaps the deeper question before us today is this: if Africa doesn't actively shape the governance of its memory systems in the age of AI, who
Mm.
will do that? So, as living archive is not memory stored away, it is memory that communities can access, shape, govern, transmit, and benefit from. And it is a heritage that remains active within society, guiding identity, education, innovation, willingness, and the future we are making. So, hence, we starting our today's session with how AI systems are already training on cultural memory today. We're also seeing how the digital platforms are already shaping identity and visibility. We'll be also assessing how archives are already becoming data infrastructure. If not so, who are breeding it? And the decision made in this decade may determine who owns African digital memory for generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce our speaker who is in the house as we're waiting for the rest of others. It's a great pleasure to have Alioune Samb. We are equally honored to welcome you as a Senegalese researcher and cultural practitioner whose work focuses on community-centered documentation, oral
Mm.
memory, authenticity, and local grounded approach to heritage preservation and cultural knowledge system. It's a great pleasure to have you around, Sir Alioune Samb. Which name do you prefer to go with?
The pleasure is for me, and thank you, Alicia, for inviting me. And maybe to let me just don't present it, but maybe to share my experience. And so here we go. We can we can start. And
Yeah.
the question is, who owned the archive in the age of AI, digital
Mm,
sovereignty, and ownership?
mm,
And maybe so I work from museum documentation in Senegal, where
mm,
archives are never simply about preserving the past.
definitely.
And in practice, documentation decides what becomes visible, what becomes
Mm,
searchable, what becomes
mm,
legitimate, and sometimes what disappears quickly inside a system.
mm,
So in many institutions, documentation still moves between handwritten registers, office computers, object files, oral memory, and partially digitized systems. And sometimes the most important metadata is not in the database. So that is my all
yeah.
my research, and it is in the memory of this. How can I say this most important metadata?
Community.
It is in the memory of a senior staff member or in
Yeah.
a conversation with a community aider. So for me, the question who owned the archive in the age of AI is not only about technology. It is about authority, who controls the data, who
Mm,
define the categories, who validate the
mm,
narrative, and
mm.
and and who benefits from the value produced around heritage.
Absolutely.
And we often speak about archives as if they were neutral containers of memory, but archives do not simply preserve history; they
Mm,
organize authority. And
mm,
in museums, this happens through ordinary things. So,
mm,
in inventory numbers, provenance fields, classifications, keywords, metadata, these things appear technical, but they
mm,
shape how heritage become understandable.
mm, mm, mm,
Sometimes even how violence becomes administratively acceptable.
mm,
So, for example, a seizure becomes a transfer, a colonial expedition becomes a collection history. In
mm,
photographic archives, absence becomes very visible, and sometimes we work with photographs where
mm,
places are identified,
mm.
dates are identified, photographers are identified, but the people in the images remain simply unknown. And
Yeah,
after
yeah, yeah.
decades, that absence starts looking normal inside the archive. But
Mm,
it is not natural, because what disappears is not only information, it is
mhm,
identity, presence, social memory, sometimes
mm.
even dignity. And
Yeah.
the archive remembers the expedition.
Mm,
Sometimes it forgets the people, and sometimes when working with archives, we realize that entire lives survive only through a line in a register,
mm,
or not survive at all. And
mm.
today, heritage data circulates globally at a speed that many institutions and communities cannot fully control.
Yeah.
Images, metadata, object descriptions, audio archives, photographs, entire collections, and these materials can now feed systems very far removed from the people and histories they come from. And this is where the
Mm.
question of AI becomes extremely important, because AI systems do not only process data, they
Yeah.
absorb they absorb classifications, they
Mm.
absorb categories, they absorb absences, they absorb historical asymmetries already embedded inside archives.
Mm.
And today, African heritage data can train systems that African institutions themselves may never fully access or control. So
Definitely.
the question is no longer only where are the objects, it is
Mm.
also
Mm.
me, who owns the data,
Yeah.
who trains the systems,
Mm.
who defines the categories, who benefits
mm,
from the circulation of heritage data. And a very important
mm.
example is Digital Benin from Nigeria.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
what makes this project important is not only digitization. So it
sure.
is the political question it raised about sovereignty.
Mm,
Thousands of Benin objects remain physically dispersed across museums worldwide,
mm,
but Digital Benin attempts to reconnect collections, archives, metadata, and histories fragmented through colonial extraction. And this matters because restitution today is no longer only about moving objects. So it is also about reconnecting systems of knowledge that were deliberately dispersed, rebuilding interpretative authority, reclaiming the ability to organize meaning around heritage. But projects like that Digital Benin also
mm.
force us to confront difficult questions.
Yeah.
And these questions are: who hosts the infrastructures,
Mm.
who controls long-term access, who
Yeah.
defines metadata standards, and who validates interpretations. Also,
Definitely.
what happens when African heritage data circulates globally through systems that African institutions do not fully control?
Wow, Arian, you very elaborated actually the entire conversation we're going to have along the way. And
Yeah.
thanks for such a warm introduction. And you really
Mm,
bring this atmosphere of understanding this
mm,
water of emerging technologies, particularly AI, not
mm.
only how to use it, but also how people must feed it so that we must train the models. And
Yeah.
indigenous knowledge systems still a long way to go. Sometimes when people comes to the preservation, they look for the intangible heritage. And from previous week session, we came to realize that there is no tangible heritage without the intangible. So
Yeah.
within the African perspective, it's a time to back to the roots and
Mm,
seeing this cultural identity continuity you've emphasized on, this self awareness, self esteem, aligned. And of course, we must look the way to design a new integrated belongingness to these global trends of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which sometimes limiting our belongingness,
mm,
and it creates to feel disconnected to your community and ancestors. So,
mm.
and right, yesterday we've been celebrating the International Day of Museums,
Yeah.
and I realized that we released an article concerning new curatorship beyond museum. How can we adopt this curatorship, but beyond the boundaries of museum, so that we can have young generation with the use of technologies, they may start to curate how the African future will be looking like. And among that, training the models, the AI, and others are really critical. So straight to the questions, Mr. Arian, it seems like you among the community-centered documentation advocates, which you do in your daily advocacy, and you've been emphasizing on this intergenerational learning, this knowledge transfer, these oral traditions in which most of Africans are rich for. And as archives increasingly became digitized and AI driven, how do communities remain custodians of their own narratives?
Thank you for this question. And it is very important
Mm,
because I think the first thing that we have to do before maybe digitizing or something like is to maybe rework again our systems who holds the knowledge. As I
Definitely. Yeah, sorry a bit. I hope you're going to even link up these context and feasible approach to decolonizing African narratives, educational system, the knowledge systems at all. Thank you.
yeah. So we have to decolonize our systems. We have to. For me, when we talk about decolonizing archives or decolonizing museums, that is not just to maybe change something like so that is to maybe re-question what kind of museum or what kind of system so we have to do, and who maybe whom represent our communities or who represent our kind of subjects. Because for me, many objects that we call objects are not objects, so they are subject, because they have some rules, they have some how can I say some objectives that they some role that they play among the communities and between the communities. So for example, in my own work in CRDS in museum documentation in Senegal, one recurring issue is that institutional systems often stabilize a single narrative. The catalog speaks, the database speaks, the museum speaks, but communities are often reduced to sources of information rather than participants in the organization of meaning. And this matters because heritage is not only made of objects, it is also made of interpretation. That is why we
Yeah.
in our museums we introduce an activity named by 1 month for one community, and we give the museum as a place, as a stand for the community who can take the museum for 1 month and to present themselves our object that we have in our how can I say in our room, the reserve. So they have the how can I say, not the chance, but they have to interpret, to present themselves the object that we hold here. And for me, that is the way to decolonize museum, because we don't have to maybe, so just an example for an exhibition, for displaying object to put them on the glass. No, we have to change the way that we display, the way that we conserve, the way that we protect subjects or objects, the way that we work with our collections. And as I said, the heritage is not only made of objects, and it is made of interpretations. It is made of relationships, languages, silences, living memory. And
Yeah.
that is why I love that you said a living archive, and that is a living memory. So projects around situated documentation and community contribution, we have been exploring how documentation systems can remain open to multiple voices. And that is why I introduce in a platform that we actually use, what I call uh, the the polyphonic system. The how can I say, the objects is the objectives is to give the floor to the community to say what they want about their own object or subject. So as I say, the documentation system have to remain open to multiple voices, like oral histories, local languages, and evolving interpretation, not to abandon rigor, but to recognize that institutional authority should not be only authority. Because if
Definitely.
communities only provide knowledge while institutions alone control validation, visibility, and circulation, then participation remains structurally limited. So I do
Yeah.
not think the answer is to reject AI or digital technologies, but the question to me is under whose authority are these systems being built, and who is allowed to shape them? Because the future of African digital heritage won't be decided only by who digitizes collections. It will be decided by who controls the data, who defines the categories, who validates the narratives, and who has the authority to decide what heritage means. The question is no longer only where heritage is kept. It is
Yeah.
who controls the conditions under which it becomes meaningful. And perhaps this is the real question of digital sovereignty. Not only who owns the archive, but who owns the power to decide what becomes memory at all. And as Sheikh Anta Job constantly reminded us through his work, historical memory is never secondary question. And today, in the age
Definitely.
of AI, the issue is no longer only whether memory survives, but who controls the systems through which it organized, digitized, interpreted, and transmitted.
Definitely, definitely. You true, Minister. We must see this value chain from data acquisition up to the data controlling, and mm, the intellectual properties are advancing nowadays. And when you assess well what the EU is doing, it seems like they intend to have whatever seems as a patent, particularly for the industrial design and other things in which the indigenous knowledge likely to be exploited in. And we must see the way to approach this with a new perception, particularly for from our readers. I mean, those AU and the regional integration. So, as we heading to the next question, I'd like to ask one more question, even though it seems like you have already passed through whatever was intended to be asked. Formality, sometimes being considered. And as backing to you, Arian, can Africa truly achieve meaningful integration if Africans themselves do not feel socially, culturally, or digitally at home across the continent? This is aligned with the great issue that we are solving as innovation for generative African generation excellence, which see regard the cultural identity devaluation. Hence, I'd like to recount the question: can Africa truly achieve meaningful integration if archive themselves, if Africans themselves do not feel socially, culturally, or digitally at home across the continent? How to toward this globalization with sense of ownership, sense of self-esteem, sense of not losing yourself, but presenting and having a pass within the global pace with your culture, with your roots as you are, not being shamed that you fed the local gastronomy, that you still believe in ancestors. You see, your the phrase yours.
So I think the best way for African museums or Africans generally integrated the globalization or the yes, something like so is to be situated for me, because it is not important that we have all around the world all the how can I say, all the continents, or all the how can I say, um um all the countries in in around the world have the same way to curate it or to preserve or to document. So the best way for globalization is to let, for me, to let all different continents
Mm.
to define their own way to maybe curate, to document, and to
Mm.
choose what is the best for them and for their societies. And that
Absolutely.
is for me at the moment, we can maybe share our different perspectives, we can share our different, how can I say, our different experiences, because for me all knowledge are situated,
Mm.
as Donna Haraway said, all knowledge are situated because uh, simple example for you,
Mm.
for example,
Mm.
for you, when we give you the floor to share with us about community, so you have also
Mm.
a background shaped by your community, by your
Mm.
environment, and you have to share this background, this example, because that is a part of you, and for me
Definitely.
that is original.
Mm.
And
Mm.
for me
Mm.
it is actually time for Africans museums, professionals museums, or Africans museums, something as you want. For me it is time for us to maybe have a real discussion about what kind of museum we want, and for
Mm.
us, what is the signification of documentation, what is
Yeah.
important to document, to curate, or to share, and what is
Mm.
not. For me,
Mm.
that is also the time that we answer a question. If we call an object or an subject heritage, uh, what we want to share, because when we call an object or
Mm.
subject um, heritage, so we have to transmit or to conserve something. And
Mm.
what if I call this cell phone heritage, what I want to
Mm.
transmit, what I want to share with others, and
Yeah.
Africans, for me, what when we call an object or an subject heritage, we want to share the traditional histories. We want
Yeah.
to share living memory. We want to
Mm.
share the community knowledge.
Yeah.
So because the object is not important, but
Mm.
that is the message that he's held, he's kept.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. What a wonderful conversation. We are apologizing for some of our speakers who had the technical issues with joining, maybe with the platform which is StreamYard we likely to use. And I hope we're going to cover up. We're going to cover up. And I'm urging everyone who's viewing this live to join us. And I hope it's going to be something deep dive with a community centered conversation. It's a conversation, no need to prepare, no need to do what. And as you're dropping the comments here, we'd like to start with this question to address this question to the audience. In the age of AI, who
Mm.
do you believe should own, govern African memory systems? Is it communities? Are they cultural institutions? Are they governments? Are they digital platforms? Are they shared public stewardship?
Can,
Drop your thoughts
can
and count
you
in the
repeat the
comments
question?
as we begin this one. Sorry?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, let
Because
me
I
first
don't see the. Okay, okay.
let, let me display it straight to down here. Could be better. And oh, sorry. Yes. The question is there. The question is there. I think now people can start to respond upon. Uh, yep. Back to you, sir. I was wondering how can we really ensure that emerging digital systems strengthen the solidarity rather than reproduce exclusion and fragmentation. I recount this question from the perspective in which African Union is still general as a continent, we still thriving toward our independent digital infrastructure. I mean, our servers, the internet connection, the satellite, still an issue to go with. So, in relation to that question, you know that mostly the infrastructure comes, and now we are seeing these sessions from memory, from cultural memory uh, to economic infrastructure. And if the digital age may baking the preservation, engagement, but also the activation of this heritage, how do we really have to ensure that emerging digital systems and technologies are strengthening our solidarity rather than reproduce exclusion and fragmentation?
Wow, wow, wow. So I think that the best, for me, what we have to do is to maybe integrate it or something, or maybe digitize, not just what we have on paper. So we have also to maybe question what we want to stabilize, what we want
Definitely.
to share. As I said,
Mm,
when we call something heritage.
mm,
So, and for me, that is the only way that we maybe we will have the opportunity or the answer to what is the best thing for digitizing an object, or the systems, or maybe what is the best systems for digitizing African archives. And we have to maybe to go out and to leave what I call the politics institutional, or the politics way to digitize, because the politics one is just maybe to trust that only museums has knowledge. The
mm,
museums
mm.
have not know the knowledge. The knowledge come from the community who own this object,
Absolutely.
this subject. That is why for the
Mm,
digitization, so we have to integrate the oral history and the community knowledge. if we
Absolutely.
how can I say, if we design an
Mm.
a digital tool or
Mm.
something like, so, and we success to have a part which we where we can maybe record the narratives from the communities. And
Mm.
when I say the narrative from community, I don't think just to maybe give them the opportunity to enter or to type something, but they have also the opportunity to record, and recording their voices, and
Definitely.
recording the singing, and all
Mm.
around the object. Because for example, we have mask, and some of mask, when we have to present the mask and the ceremony. So sometimes we have to sing, we have to dance, we have to
Mm.
do more representations before the mask.
Yeah.
How can I say? Before the mask presenting, between or around the communities or the peoples. So that is why we have to think digitization as the way to maybe record all around these subjects or objects, and
Absolutely.
to give the equal part of the institutional recording and the community's knowledge. They have to
Wow.
be.
Wow. That's really amazing. Community-centered documentation is critical with this approach of embracing our knowledge, our indigenous knowledge systems, as we've been emphasizing. And I'm totally agree with you that this could be a good approach to go with when we trying to see how we won't find ourselves being exploited or something else excluded. And as you've been emphasizing on it, I'm pleased to go to the next question. In your review, what does Pan Africanism look like in the age of AI and digital citizenship?
Oh, I. So actually, I'm writing a book that I titled that we must have.
Really?
Yes, yes,
Wow.
and we have to maybe say it Man-Africanism
Mm.
and not Pan-Africanism. Man-Africanism, or but not Pan-Africanism, because I think
Uh-huh.
actually, so we have to say Man-Africanism just for the M for representing mother. And as
Okay.
we said, so Africa is the mother, or the mother of the existence. And for me, Pan-Africanism, the age of AI, is to be back, to go back to the roots, go back to the basis, and go back to the
Mm.
basics is to maybe re-question again what we have to do with these objects, with
Mm.
with these objects, with the subjects, and
Mm.
to go to see and to discuss with the communities, with the parents,
Mm.
with the grandparents, and to keep their memory and to
Sure.
save it. And
Sure.
Pan-Africanism for me is to let the others, the Occidents,
mm,
or the others in all around the world to know that we are not here when we talk
mm,
about sovereignty, where when we talk about objects, when we talk about preservation, when we talk about museums and all the subjects, we are not here just for figuring.
mm.
We are here to participate because we have our voices to share.
Definitely.
We have also to reclaim that the Africans, the objects or the subjects from Africa are not in the museum just to be considered as art.
Mm, 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 mm,
They
mm.
have memory that we have to reconnect with the communities, to reconnect
Yeah,
with our memory, to reconnect with our society. And for
yeah.
me, Pan-Africanism is in the age of AI
Mm,
to be sovereign, to design
mm,
our tool. When I say our tool, that is not just our tool just for our own, but the tool
mm,
that who the tool whom which can how can I, which can reflect
mm.
Africa the museums which can reflect Africa, and
Yeah.
we have to maybe produce or to be researcher who
Mm,
think from
mm.
Africa, but not researcher who think on Africa or in Africa. So we have
Wow.
to be a researcher that, who reflects from Africa.
That's the perspective of Pan-Africanism, a new concept that I get from now. And this is the best of the dialogues, particularly intercultural, intergenerational dialogues are pretty well. And we'd like to remind people that we have adopted the live museum concept of UNESCO, and it's all about intercultural dialogue. So, and wow, what a wonderful session. And it seems like we met the right person for this. As we concluding our session, you allow me to go with the last two remaining
Mm.
questions to drive our conversation of today. And uh, if you don't mind, Arion, what we have seen the risk emerge when likely to emerge when oral histories, indigenous knowledge, and cultural memory enter algorithmic systems without community governance. We understood that the authenticity, the metadata around it, you really you have really articulated well and exposed the possible way to go. And hence, this question is kind of relevant, even though in one where totally different. How can authenticity and ethical documentation be protected in a rapidly evolving digital ecosystem?
So I think authenticity. Um, so I think that authenticity. We cannot talk about authenticity without community,
Yeah, yeah.
because that makes the object or the images like photographies or what
Mm,
we want to maybe what we can say the
mm,
authenticity come from the communities,
mm,
because they are the basis, they are people who make or who make sense or who give sense to the objects and that is why we find the we find interesting the object or the subject
mm,
until we hold it in our museums. because
Absolutely.
it is authentic, because the community is behind.
Mm.
So,
Ah,
authenticity equal to be back to the communities and to give them the floor and to work with them, because they have the power to give sense to the object, to the
yeah.
subject.
So that's why there is no restitution without repatriation and repatriation.
No.
Wow, what a wonderful conversation. I'm learning a lot. I'm just learning a lot. And straight to the last but not least, what does a true community centered archive look like in the age of AI? Beyond of being community centered, because you've emphasized on this much, and beyond of experience, beyond of what you've saying, what does really a true community-centered archive look like in the age of AI?
So I think it look like oh so something maybe who which can reconnect systems of knowledge that were deliberately dispersed, as I said. And it looked like
Wow.
something to rebuild interpretative authority, and maybe hosting their own infrastructures, controls long-term access, and defines
Mm,
metadata
mm.
standards, and
Wow.
and also have the how can I say, the power to validate interpretations. For me,
Definitely.
that's all. So we have to maybe to be how can I say, um to be independent, not independent
Mm,
as we can maybe we can understand the term, but independent, how, what, and what we want to preserve, what we want to document, what we want to
mm,
curate, and
mm.
what we want to do with them, with their documentation. There's object, there's memory, and to
Wow.
have the power maybe to design the our own systems.
Definitely. That's really wonderful, like response in regard to what we've been talking about, and you very elaborated how the African may go toward this future where the community-centered archive may look like in this era of AI. And thank you so much. We may say that Africa cannot afford to become only a consumer of digital futures designed elsewhere. Africa must become an architect of ethical memory systems rooted in dignity, community, sovereignty, and belonging. Because the future of African heritage will not depend only on what we preserve, it will depend on who governs the system preserving it. And as we close today's session, one thing becomes increasingly clear is that the future of archive is no longer only about preservation, it's about systems. Systems where culture, where technology, where governance, community memory, and regenerative futures work together. And this is exactly where week 4 takes us, from dialogue to systems. And because if we agree that African memory must remain community centered, sovereign, and regenerative, then the next question becomes, what systems must we build to make that possible? Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Alioune, for making this conversation thoughtful. Uh, we've been having other speakers, conveners to see how the tokenization can help. What does really African Union are setting as policy, the framework in which this adaptation is going to be customized and adjustable for the base of African community. And we cannot conclude without having a closing remarks. And from experience, what can you ask for a nation, for the region, for the EU, and of course UNESCO, because the global collaboration? We come to find that there is no way we're no longer working in silos. Global collaboration is really critical. And it's your turn to give remarks to all of these key players, stakeholders, the community, what they can do, the academic, what they can contribute to really having this community-centered archive that benefiting in Africa and within these emerging technologies beyond of AI, because we may talk on about AI. However, other emerging technologies are around. Your turn, sir, as we close it.
Yeah, so I think what I want
Yes.
to maybe share for concluding is to let all the partners,
Mm,
African Union, UNESCO, the museums professionals, workers, and all around
mm,
the world and the communities. So for me, the future of African heritage will not be decided only in museum reserves,
mm.
databases, or servers, and it will be decided in the struggle over who has the authority to describe, interpret, classify, digitize, and transmit memory. Because
Yeah.
when a people lose control over the systems that organize its memory, it risks slowly losing control over the meaning of its own presence in history. And perhaps this is the real challenge before us today, not simply to
Mm,
preserve African heritage, but to ensure that Africa remains capable of speaking for itself through the infrastructures that
yeah.
will define memory in the digital age.
Mm,
Thank you.
mm.
That was my last word.
Wow, thank you so much for being part of this conversation, wherever you're watching us from. And it was a great pleasure to have you all. Let's call it a day, let's call it the end of our week three. And we'd like to thank our guest speaker who was around. We had a good conversation and it was insightful. And yeah, let's say that we continue with the week four, where we'll be assessing how to move from dialogue to systems. Now we've been having the discussion, but I think the June series will be how to become with these systems. And yeah, good things to go with. And thanks for reminding all of the key players from advocacy to private sector. I think now it's time to put our hands together and work together. And thank you once again, Alioune.
Thank you.
Big
Thank you for
time.
the
And keep
invitation.
thriving. You're contributing much. You're contributing much because. But before leaving, how do you see this issue of cultural identity devaluation and how to solve? How to, which feasible approach to go with it?
Oh, ah, that is a question.
Yeah, people are hurting themselves. The self-esteem, the belongingness. They like to become something else. instead of
Mm.
banging to the roots and being themselves and be proud of it. Um, yeah, your perspective on it.
For me, the we can try all we want, so we can try all solutions that we want. So for me, the only solutions for me, maybe it is a mistake, maybe, or maybe not, but for me
Mm,
the solution is to go back to the basis,
absolutely.
because all these, how can I say, all these we have all these problem matters, all these problems
Mm,
when we leave the basis, when we leave our own reality.
yeah.
So we can be open. So we have to be also in our reality, in our perspective, and the African perspective. For me, that is the best way to maybe to answer this question.
Long live Africa, long live Africans, long live fellow global citizen, and this is an African regenerative era.
Yeah.
So we might ride and take the lead along the way. Thank you so much, Aliu.
Thank
Let's
you.
say goodbye, big time, and we wish you all the success within whatever doing.
All right. All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for the invitation, and it is a pleasure to share with all your community. And yeah,
Thank you
thank
so.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.